So we want to talk about the movie on Netflix, Joy, the Birth of IVF, that has been out. It's been out for a little while now.
Yes.
But we watched it recently, and we haven't talked about it yet.
No.
So we're just going to talk about it here in front of you guys.
Fresh.
Yes. Fresh thoughts.
Reviews.
Yes.
Yes.
So what'd you think, Jess?
Wow. It blew my mind in a lot of ways. I think having gone through the experience of IVF, it really, there was the emotional piece and things that I could touch on and feel about the women that walked through that and that were used as test subjects before it actually was successful. So that piece was interesting. Just also watching the medical side play out and then the ethical side play out. It was just like, there were a lot of layers to it for me.
But they did a good job, I feel like, of covering all those aspects.
Yes,
of
I agree.
Bringing in the ethical issues, the actual technical side of the medical. That part blew me away. Like, I never thought about how IVF was done differently in the beginning.
Right.
And so that was really eye-opening, just like how the procedure started and where it is now. So anybody who has done IVF, I feel like would be really enthralled with the movie and just like
very
amazed
much so.
by it. I don't know if you haven't gone through it, if you would find it as interesting.
Yeah.
But if you've been through that or are going through fertility stuff, like it was definitely super interesting from that perspective.
Yes. I was surprised by the amount of religion that they brought into it, and especially just because that's why we are in this space. So that was really interesting that like this ethical, moral side has been talked about since the beginning of this procedure.
It does make so much sense just how revolutionary that idea would have been. I mean, people... once you really do stop and think about the time period and the idea of making a baby outside of the body, like just mentioning that and it not existing yet, people would be like mind blown.
Exactly.
And so they did a good job of portraying that in the video, but that's not something I ever really thought about. But just how hard it would be to wrap your mind around that. And from the Christian perspective of like the moral aspects that they bring up in the movie, like thinking about it, it does make sense that people responded that way just because it was so revolutionary. And the other thing was just the lack of awareness of infertility. Like I think that was a big part. People in the movie were talking about like, is this a really necessary science that we really need? How prevalent is this? Is this really a big deal? So you definitely get that piece of like people weren't talking about infertility, women who struggle with it. People had no idea what they were going through and the emotional toll that it was taking on them.
We're trying to cure childlessness. It was what they would like. Their hearts were genuine for what they wanted to do. And at one point they say like when they were maybe before the medical board and they were trying to defend like what they were doing and needing money, they said like infertility wrecks marriages and it wrecks lives. And to your point of like people didn't even really realize that.
I was so struck by all the noble women who led the way. Because I think I looked it up. There was over 200 women that were part of their initial trial that went through over a 10-year
282 women they treated or tested or used over that space.
And they show in the video, they're telling these women, your chances are not good. You are not likely to get pregnant.
Don't think this is going to work.
You are probably not going to get a baby. So basically they're just saying, like, we're just asking you to do this. And you hear the women say multiple times, we're doing this for other people. It may not work for us, but it might work for someone else. And I just was so struck by that, thinking then about our stories and all these women who sacrificed and did something because it was much more physically taxing as well at that time.
Absolutely.
And that I'm like, it's insane to think that on the shoulders of these women who were brave enough to do this, that now there have been millions of babies born to women like Jess and I who couldn't have our own babies. And that was just really heartwarming, and
that truly made me emotional.